Hi, welcome to the Bad Twins film class for Fight or Flight. Today we'll talk about how to stage a murder. Well, you know what I mean. You really do have to plan the hell out of any no-budget genre movie, but even more so when you're talking about action scenes filmed in a public place. Part of the reason is just being able to get cool stuff on camera very quickly, which we'll get to, but a more important reason is just keeping everyone safe. That's especially because none of us are stuntmen or stunt coordinators and we can't afford real movie stunt props. Let's start with this bit of Colin garroting Keith. As soon as Colin suggested doing this, I knew what to use for the close-up prop, but Keith and I were really nervous about the parts where Colin actually grabs him, because it doesn't take a lot of force to crush a windpipe, and Colin's just big enough that with a hard pull he might be able to do that. So for the shots where Colin is grabbing and pulling Keith, he's actually just using a piece of sewing thread. That way if Colin got a bit frisky, and he did, then the thread would break instead of Keith's neck. For the shots where Colin is just holding the garrote on his own, we used one of my old guitar strings. Since we didn't have anything like a switchblade knife, I just had Colin do this dramatic move to pull it out of his coat. You can use choreography and editing to get away with a lot of cheating in movies, especially to hide your lack of production value from the audience, like using a steak knife as your assassin's murder weapon. Don't forget as well about just using camera angles, editing, and sound effects to make a scene seem more violent than it really is. For example, while we used a real knife for these close-ups, what Colin's holding during the actual murder is a twig that's about 2 inches long, and that's it. We used camera angles to hide it as much as possible, but I screwed up and still filmed this really great angle of Colin pulling a non-existent knife out of Keith's neck and walking away. What saved our butts was that the goof-up was less than a second long, and we knew Eric Johnson, who's really good with Photoshop, so we just had him do some CGI. Again, it's a really quick shot, and it's not supposed to draw attention to itself, so it doesn't have to be perfect, just there. Keith getting stabbed and then dying is one of the few things that I went out of my way to film from many angles. Since this is an important part of the movie, I wanted to have a lot of ways to show it. Just about everything else was only grabbed from one angle, and that's what you can do when you go through a scene ahead of time and figure out exactly what you need. You'll only shoot the bits that you'll use, and you've almost got the scene cut in the camera. One last effect was the blood. Since we had a lot of trouble with the fake blood on From the Eyes of the Wrong, we all wanted to use something that was much simpler and more reliable, so we took a page from Alfred Hitchcock and used chocolate sauce. This was one of the reasons I shot the movie in black and white, to be honest. I didn't really feel like firing around and experimenting for a shoot that would only last for a few hours. One thing that you need to watch out for with using chocolate sauce for blood is that it's really sticky. Keith is rarely a diva, but he did get pretty annoyed with me for making him slap this gunk on his neck. You should also water it down a bit if you can. Blood has a fairly loose texture, but chocolate sauce is pretty thick when it's right out of the bottle. That's one of the reasons we went back and reshot some things, like the final shot in the movie. In a take that we got during principal photography, to be honest, the blood on the peace sign looked more like rat poop. Another reshoot was a shot of Keith actually dying. The first time around it was very rough and sloppy, and none of us thought there was any drama in it. If the audience doesn't feel sad when your hero dies, then the whole movie is for nothing, so this is something you have to get right. And that's it, you just have to plan your ass off on a scene like this. Go to the location or set, take a video camera or a point-and-shoot camera, and just practice with it. Make a note of the shots you like best, and only film those angles when you do it for real. When you're doing stunts, make it look cool, but also make damn sure that no one gets hurt. If that means you can only do so many gags, tough. Make it work. Build up the suspense and invest in the characters, which you're supposed to do anyway, and pretty much everything else will take care of itself. Oh, and if you decide to get out from behind the camera and pour fake blood yourself, make sure your feet aren't in the frame.